Hey friends, I'm going to show you how to paint these cute watercolor bookmarks. I'm going for a fall theme here, so I mixed up some warm autumn colors, and I'll show you how I did that in just a moment. To get started, I just used some tape and a ruler to create these rectangles that measure approximately 2.5 by 7 inches. However, you can make your own size. It's completely up to you. So let's begin. So I'm going to start with the first layer, and keep in mind that this can be very loose. It doesn't have to be very dark, and I'm going to use my old number 8 round. You can see it's misshapen. It's not a perfect brush, but that's okay. I have my go-to brushes for kind of those sweeping loose florals. And I'm going to grab some of this orange over here, kind of dilute it a little bit with some water. And let's start at this upper corner. And I'm just going to make some quick little C-shaped brush strokes around an imaginary center, and I can add that later. And while everything is still wet, you can drop in some darker color if you want. If you want to pick up any sort of fibers that fell in, you can just take a brush that's kind of damp and just scoop it up. Although this isn't working very good, so I'm going to use my fingernail. Okay. And while everything's still wet, I'm going to drop in a bit of that yellow ochre into the petals right here. And you can see that while the first layer is still wet, that darker pigment sort of fades out into the petals. You can give them a bit of a definition if you want. So I've got kind of an olive green color here. It's cobalt blue, Winsor yellow, and yellow ochre. But I also have this cheat green called gold green, but it's super, super bright. It's great, but it's too bright for me, so sometimes I just mix it in with my other greens to make it lean a little bit more olive. Right, so I've got a bit of an olive green here. I'm going to put a little bit of a flower center there. Rinse my brush, grab some of that red, and this one I'm just going to make a series of little red petals that all move toward the center. I'm not going to touch it quite yet though, because if I do, then the green will blend in with that red, and I don't really want to do that yet. Now let's add another little flower, maybe over here. This one I'll make using a plum color. This is a purple I mixed up using ultramarine and red. And I'm going to make petals going all around, making these a little bit bigger, kind of like two curved shapes coming together. And I'm going to put another flower here, maybe a yellow one. So I'm going to get some of that green again. Rinse my brush. I'm going to mix up a golden yellow with yellow ochre and Winsor yellow, so it leans more into a fall type of orangey yellow. And I'm going to make some bigger petal shapes by just holding my brush a little bit more at an angle, and that way I can get these sweeping sort of petal shapes. You can see when I touch that purple, the colors bleed together. Let's put a green center over here. I think I like doing the green center first, because then that gives me a place to put my flower. Let's pop one there and one over here and one right there. And then I'm going to take a smaller brush, number 8. This one comes to a finer tip. I want to put some of that red-orange color, maybe right in here, using a different texture. Smaller petals, sort of like the kind you see with mums, sort of feathering them out. And I like to fill in the gaps with greenery, so I'm grabbing that olive yellow. And remember, when you tape your paper, you want to bring your flowers and your petals to the edge if you can, because when you remove the tape, you'll get this beautiful border. You can make your leaves go in different directions. That gives it some movement. Tuck them between the flowers, just fills in some of the spaces. And we'll keep moving on down. I like to create sort of varied colors in here. Bring this color down over maybe over here again with some of these flowers. I think I'll do that. So let's grab that green again. Pop a little center of a flower there, maybe one over here. And let's start filling in those petals. It's okay if some of your petals touch. It can create a fluid effect. We need some more purple, so let's put a little purple one maybe over here. And I'm balancing it out, so I've got one purple on the left and then I got a purple down on the right. We'll use the same type of petals I used for that flower, just a little bit smaller. Widening them a bit. I want them to take up more space. Maybe I'll put another one here just because I'm liking the way that looks. Right in the middle. It's not a very bold and bright purple, it's more of a muted purple. And maybe we'll take this color and repeat it over here. So put a little bit of a green right on the side maybe. That's okay, it's like the flower is halfway off the paper. And let's just fill it in. Just some really loose, washy petals. I can give them some more definition later. And maybe I'll use this same color over here. Or I can repeat that one too. That would be good. Let's do that. And I'll pop a little bit of a green center right here. So I used the same green for my center as I did for my leaves. And that just helps keep the palette kind of cohesive. A little bit, you've heard of limited palette. It also gives it that sort of color harmony. A lot of my designs, not all of them, but a lot of them I create for the home decor industry, and so I like to stick to more limited color palettes because it helps the whole collection come together. So I'm going to leave that for now and let it dry, and then I will come over again with another layer. So let's add another layer to this bookmark. I'm going to use a smaller round. I have a number 4 by Princeton Neptune, but another really great brush I like is this number 8 by Silver Black Velvet. It comes to a really fine point, even though it is an 8. So it's up to you, but I like to add a little bit more detail in the flower petals and in the leaves. So let's mix up some darker values. I'm going to start with this one up here and just kind of work my way down. So I've got this burnt orange mixture going on here. It's got some yellow ochre mixed with my Winsor red, a little bit of my Winsor yellow. And all I'm going to do is just make some little brush strokes that come down to that middle of the flower. Gives the petals some definition. And notice how I'm varying the shape. So I have some that are wide, some that are skinny, some that are shorter. And some of them, what I'm going to do is remove the paint from my brush. Now it's a wet brush, and I'm just going to soften an edge and sort of feather out that color a little bit. Let's add one over here too. Now this can also help you cover up anything you don't like. So I had something going on there that was a little bit funky. I just covered it up. And as I get to the center, I just like to drop in a little bit more saturated color. That just helps things stand out a little bit more. So I'm poking in that color. And then I'll add a little bit of color to that center, but I might wait until these dry because I don't want it to bleed into the petals quite yet. But because I'm impatient, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to mix up some of that green, or I could even add a bit of brown in there, but I'm going for a darker olive green here. So I'm just going to make that center a little bit bigger, darken it a bit there. And since I've got that paint on my brush, I might as well do it over here too. Not going all the way around, but I want it to look like there's maybe a highlight in the button centers of these flowers. And you can also use the same darker green for the leaves. But let's work on this, on these little red flowers here. So I'm going to rinse my brush, grab a more saturated mix of that red, and let's just give them a bit more definition. Maybe there's a layer of petals that are in front that are overlapping, and so I'm going to do that here. Using that smaller brush, I can get these finer little brush strokes that are more separated, more defined, I should say, from each other. With this one, I might just do a few little, because these petals are a little bit wider, so I'm just going to make a little bit of definition in some of them. And I kind of want to do the same thing for these. So these have these background petals. I'm just going to give them, some of them, a bit of definition too. And then I've got this purple, so I can start adding some darker purple to those. I'm going to grab that mixture that I made up. And I'm not trying to overthink it because I don't want to get caught up in too many details. The goal is to just keep it kind of light and fresh. And I could do the rest of the flowers, but I want to see what to do with these green leaves. So I'm going to mix up a darker green there. And I'm going to start defining some of these centers. And at the same time, I'll define some of the edges of the leaves. To get a wider mark, I'm going to push my brush down and then lift up. To get a thinner mark, I'm just going to use the very tip and create little lines. Don't forget about your corners and edges. You want to make sure you kind of have your bookmark covered on all the edges so that when you tear off your tape, you can see a nice defined edge all around. Let's see, for this one here, I'm going to add some deeper, sort of a brownish yellow ochre. And I'm going to take the edge of the brush, or the side, and I'm going to push down. That creates a wider brush stroke. So you can do that even with a little number 4. I just really like to create this little bits of variation. Some small marks, some large. It just makes it more interesting and lively, I think. And let's do that over here too. So I push down. Plus, if you have any petals that just don't seem really well defined, that's where you can use this technique to give them more definition. I think I'll add a little bit more up here too. Why not? I'll use that same, I'm going to use a little bit more red in the mix and work on these little flowers here. So and now let's do that greenery. I usually do one side and then another. I don't go all the way around, but you can. And let's deepen some of those leaves. You can even pop in a few more if you like. Now this would be a really fun gift and really a fun activity to do in the fall. Just remember, if you want to get that fall color palette, you can really use any red, yellow, green, or blue you have. If you add a little bit of yellow ochre to it, it will give it that earthy look. So try and use what you have. Don't go out and buy the exact colors that I use, because it's all about creating that earthy look, and you can get that by mixing up a yellow ochre or another sort of a warm yellow too. So once your paint is completely dry, you can remove the tape and cut out your bookmarks and share them with someone special. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial.